Good morning, squad. Paul Killoren here on the mic for your PT on Ice daily show. If we've never met, I'm the division lead for the dry needling division currently, and we've got a pretty crazy, pretty exciting fall coming at you guys. 17 courses on the calendar to round out 2024. We're going to 12 or 13 different states. It's a busy fall for us, which is awesome. I'm pumped. Our hosts are pumped. Our faculty are pumped. If you're already maxed out for this year, we have the first half-ish of 2025 set up. So check us out. Again, dry needling courses. We have upper dry needling, lower dry needling, and advanced dry needling. And it has been really cool, really exciting for us to have our first handful of advanced dry needling courses, which really is our first wave of ICE certified specialists in dry needling come through. So my name's Paul, current division lead for dry needling, and today we're to talk some dry needling, if that wasn't assumed or known. We're going to drop a dry needling journal club like we do every week today, and it's a cadaveric validation study for the lateral pterygoid technique. Basically, the whole question was using cadaveric validation based on our bony landmarking, based on what we know of anatomy, based on what we were taught for dry needling. Can we effectively, was really the question of the study that I'll drop today. Can we accurately put a needle in the lateral pterygoid muscle? And the answer is yes. I mean, spoiler alert, you should still read the post. You should still like, follow, share. But really, studies like this, being dry needling validation or dry needling accuracy studies, always brings a single question to me. I get this question more than I used to. And I'm not saying it's frequently like every course, but maybe every couple months, I get this question in my inbox or on a course. And that question for today, for this episode, is, should we be using real-time ultrasound in the clinic for our dry needling techniques? And really, if you've been asked this, or if you've been pitched this question before, it may have been from someone who is selling ultrasound units or teaches with them. And they would say that it's essentially required or it's vital for the safety and accuracy of dry needling. So big picture, the question tossed to me is, should we be using ultrasound in the clinic? I'll start actually with my end answer, which is no. At this point, if you're asking me directly, my opinion, based on what I know, should we be using in the clinic? No. And right now, there's lots of variables there. I'll go through some research, so it's not just my opinion this morning. But right now, the time it takes and the expense of these units versus any increased safety or increased accuracy, it just isn't there quite yet. But I think we have to immediately acknowledge that there are a lot of validation research studies for our dry needling techniques that were first conducted under ultrasound. Meaning, when you came to a course and you were taught palpate here, insert inferiorly, angle superiorly, get a bony contact, many of those techniques were first conducted using ultrasound. So I don't think we can immediately say ultrasound's way too expensive, it takes way too long, I don't want to buy the unit, therefore there's zero value. I don't think we're saying there's zero value. In fact, I think we need to acknowledge that what allows most of us to rely on our known anatomy, on our bony landmarking, on those techniques we learn in the courses, was that researchers or someone out there first validated that technique using ultrasound. The other way to validate is with cadaveric. So I want to go through a few research articles to frame my thoughts. Because again, if you're asking me directly, should we be using ultrasound in the clinic right now? My answer is no. One research article, and I can post these citations. In fact, some of these might pop up in future weeks for our dry needling journal club. We kind of do a deeper-ish dive to some dry needling related research each week. We post it on Instagram. It's a carousel. You can swipe through and do the TLDR, or even on the story. You can drop some comments. That's actually the most exciting for us, to hear your feedback on the research we drop. All of that to say, some of these research articles will go into more depth in future weeks, so stay tuned. But the main one I want to talk about is 2024. The author's last name is Vitt. Directly wanted to ask, is our surface palpation, is our bony landmarking safe and accurate for infraspinatus and supraspinatus. So essentially, they had 10 subjects. Each subject got an infraspinatus needle, a supraspinatus needle. Once that needle was placed, they came in with ultrasound and said, did we get it? Um, and the conclusion was yes, 19 out of the 20 needles could be visualized. So first of all, that's a question that comes up and will come up later when we talk about different units out there. Early on, the question was, are we even able to see these monofilament needles with ultrasound? The answer from this article, but other publications, is yes, you can see this tiny little monofilament needle and you can visualize the tip. So this article said we could see 19 of the 20 little needle tips, and all of them, 19 out of the 20 tips that we could see, were in the appropriate muscle based on our surface anatomy and bony landmarking. Super cool. That very directly answers our question. And I won't go through every single citation I wrote here in my notes, but suffice it to say that those more technical needles, those deeper targets, maybe that we can't palpate directly. I don't think anyone is asking if we can accurately, safely get our needle into vastus lateralis. But a lot of the more technical needles, the more challenging techniques, or you could even say the higher risk profiles, have been validated with either ultrasound or with cadavers. So just going through, I did a quick 15-minute search in my library of dry needling validation, dry needling safety, dry needling accuracy. And Fernandez de la Pena has one in 2017 validating cervical multifidus. He has one in 2020 validating that we can accurately do IOC, so inferior obliquus capitis. Wang Price had a publication in 2022 that validated we can accurately do a lumbar multifidus. There was a 2022 publication saying we can consistently accurately get in popliteus. There was one in 2020, cadaveric validation saying that we could get into medial pterygoid. So suffice it to say, we can effectively and consistently get our needle into anatomical targets based on the data set for validation we have out there. But still, the question is, if price wasn't a factor, if they were handing out free ultrasound units on the corner, would it be a good idea? Should we be using this? Does it increase safety slightly? And for everything I just mentioned, being some of the smaller upper cervical, so the true suboccipitals, multifidus, some spinal targets, still the answer seems to be no. We are just as accurate. We are accurate enough, being nearly 100%, with those techniques based on how we are trained. But I think we have to pause and kind of put our ego aside and say, man, what if we're doing rectus abdominis? What if we are doing a rib technique? Any of you out there that might be listening who have already taken our advanced course, we pause for a second and say, all right, here are some of the techniques coming at you this weekend. Some of you are asking or wondering or have seen or previously been trained on rib blocking techniques, which essentially means you're trying to block a rib, use the rib as a bony backdrop for muscles like posteriorly, like iliocostalis or serratus posterior, serratus anterior. And we go through a few pieces of research only to land on the answer that says, no, we are not doing surface palpation, rib blocking, bony backdrop on a rib techniques this weekend. And the reason is based on Cushman 2021, but everything else that we know and feel deep in our heart. The reason we are not using ribs or rib blocking techniques, ribs as bony backdrop, is Cushman in 2021 said, some fairly experienced physical therapists were about 72% and 75% accurate at truly blocking a rib. So if you're asking yourself, or if you're asking our profession, how comfortable would we feel using the rib as a backdrop? I hope our honest answer is about a C-, because that's what the research said. So all of that to say, if you find that you are doing specialized techniques, if you deep down are like, I need to interact with serratus posterior superior, I need to pin down this very specific band against a rib, I think that's where we start to acknowledge our palpation doesn't get us there. there was actually a cadaveric validation study for the abs. And I posted a journal club about this a few months ago. I have a few of the limitations from the study, but what they found was based on placing a needle, and they were basically allowed to choose two different techniques. If you just go straight in A to P through the abs, you run the risk of entering the peritoneum on a cadaver. We do ab needling on our advanced course. It's very easy to avoid that risk. But I think if you're just asking the highest level question of, can bad things happen if we don't know what we're doing? And I guess if, for the point of this episode, if we're not using ultrasound, the answer is yes, potentially. So right now, I think we say, let's avoid those techniques, meaning we're not going to approach the ab directly A to P. We're not going to use the rib as a backdrop. Then we're back to our answer of, should we be using ultrasound in the clinic? I think the answer is no. And let's talk about cost, because one publication said ultrasound-based dry needling actually was slightly more accurate, which it should be. If it wasn't accurate, we wouldn't be having this conversation, or people wouldn't ask. It should be a few points more accurate. But they also concluded that the palpation-based dry needling was thoroughly safe, and really it was not that much less accurate. So their conclusion from the author was, based on the time it took to do the technique using ultrasound, and based on the cost of a dry needling unit, still it is not the recommendation to be using real-time ultrasound imaging for our dry needling techniques. And I think that's the realistic answer. I did a quick search of some of the dry needling units out there, because it used to be a hard no based on these units costing $9,000, $10,000. That price point is coming down. There are some units out there. I mean, the I guess most clinically approachable tier is around $4,000. And I pause because there are a few very cheap units being around $1,000, but I think that's where we have to ask, the quality's a little less, the unit a little smaller. Would we be able to consistently pick up our monofilament needle tip with that cheapest unit? I'm not an ultrasound imaging expert, but in my mind, and I have used units, some of the portable ones, some of the older, bigger ones. I just don't have the training or confidence in myself to say that I could see a needle tip with that cheapest unit out there. So right now we're saying no, but I am fully prepared to look myself in the mirror in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, when we have a much smaller device, when we have a much cheaper device, and we have an app on our phone. Are there going to be certain techniques where it's going to be kind of nice to have access to ultrasound? Maybe. And I think that's where I'm going to leave this today. Sorry if that's unsatisfying, but still, if you want a direct answer from me based on the data set we have now, should we be using real-time ultrasound in the clinic for our dry needling techniques right now? The answer is no. And a very confident no. We can do it just as safely and effectively using our surface palpation bony landmarking. No, it doesn't substantially increase the risk not to be using it. And I think we just have to say the time expense and the actual financial expense of those units right now is all why we say no. But I think there has to be this conversation, there has to be this pause that says, if any of that changes, or if you are doing the highest risk technique out there, we have to acknowledge that ultrasound has to be in this equation. So that's where I'm going to leave it today. Again, what spawned the title of this topic in my mind is that later this morning, I'll be dropping our weekly Dry Needling Journal Club research highlight, and it is about a lateral pterygoid technique, cadaveric validation, not ultrasound, but wanted to jump on and answer a common question. If this is truly a deeper, like a more sincere question for you clinically, I invite you to ask the opposite side. I invite you to ask someone who teaches real-time ultrasound training. Maybe it's even a dry needling course that uses ultrasound. I invite you to get the other side. They're going to talk about increased accuracy, which is true, and it does, and it should, and increased safety. And I think that's where we have to say only for a certain number of techniques. So I'm going to jump off. Thanks for spending a few minutes of your morning with me, or if you're watching the recording. Again, my name is Paul Killoren, currently division lead for dry needling. Um, Honestly, whether you are wanting to add dry needling to your clinical skill set for the first time, or you have some previous dry needling training, we have a pretty solid 50-50 mix on our courses of folks kind of coming to hear the newer research, sharpen their skills with eStim, all those things with previous training, and some that are brand new. And really, that's how our upper and lower courses are designed. Our advanced course is not for that. Our advanced course is you've taken upper or lower with us, and you want to finish the drill with the most advanced eStim. We do peripheral nerve stim. We do some of those full body, advanced is a full body course, but some of those more advanced technical higher risk targets. We do tendons. We do some scar techniques. So we have a handful of advanced courses coming up this fall and into 2025. That is how you would receive the ICE certified specialist in dry needling from us with ICE is upper, lower, and advanced. Otherwise, thanks for joining today. Thanks for interacting with our stuff on Instagram or social media. My name is Paul, but at DPT with Needles is the handle. Otherwise, drop your comments, check out our weekly journal club, and we'd love to see you on a course in the fall.